I share 3 dogs with my girlfriend, and she recently suffered a concussion after a horse riding accident, so I've pretty much taken on the role of single dad for the time being. I had just finished making dinner and remembered that the dogs needed to go outside for a walk as soon as possible. My girlfriend and I would usually take them out together, but seeing as how she'd fell ill, I elected to go out alone. This was about at 7:30 p.m. We attend UC Davis, which for all intents and purposes is a really safe school. The city is comprised mostly of students and educated professionals, so it's not abnormal to see a young girl jogging through the parks at night alone. It's that level of safe. Right next to my girlfriend's house is a park, which is one of many that run interconnected through the northern part of town. They call this series of parks the Green Belt, and it's a popular spot for cycling, jogging, old people, and dog walking. The whole thing is rather long, so we usually walk only for a few minutes before stopping and letting the dogs run around off the leash. It's against the rules, but nobody follows the rules to begin with, so fuck that. I'm going to make sure my dogs are good and tired before I go home. I let them run around in the dark until they're ready to go inside. Once they finish, as we're walking on the sidewalk, I can see a figure walking in my direction. He was really tall and lanky, and had the general shape of the alien from Signs. What struck me as odd, however, was the fact that he was walking really slowly. Not snail pace, mind you, but much slower than any normal walk I've ever seen. That, and his walk was too methodical, almost robot-like in its simplicity. He just looked like he was standing on one of those walking escalators in the middle of the airports, just moving forward slowly and without much effort. The worst part was, I could tell he was holding something in his arms. I kept walking forward, dragging my dogs who in hindsight were probably spooked the fuck out. So this guy comes into full view as he glide walks towards me, and I can see that he's cradling a baby to his chest. Only he's not really cradling it, he's merely holding it in his arms in a basic cradle position, kind of like that fake cradle motion you make when you sing that Rockabye Baby song. It looked fake, especially given the fact that he wasn't supporting the head whatsoever. All the while, he's not looking down at his baby, but instead staring intensely at me with this horribly blank stare. As he passes me, I steal a glance at his baby, and I can see that it's not moving. It just lays there. To my horror, I can tell that it's a baby doll. Or at least, that's what I really hope it was. Otherwise, I just witnessed some next level fucked up shit. Before I can realize that it's a plastic doll, I give a short aw to try and break his blank stare. He just kept staring at me though, and even keeps his head locked on me as he passes by, turning his head to keep looking. The worst part was his face, which just looked like a blank wall. I'd never seen anyone who showed less emotion than this man. He had glasses and was sort of balding, but the really defining feature was the Michael Myers stare he gave me. It was unreal. I walk on. It takes me a few seconds to register what I just saw. I turn my head around and this is where shit gets real. Under the street light, the man had stopped walking. He slowly turns his head around and starts to stare at me with that blank stare again. At this point, I've opened up my big can of fuck no and started to walk faster. After a few seconds of power walking, I turn around again, and I see that he's not only turned his head, but his whole fucking body is facing me now, still holding his plastic baby doll. I whip out my phone and call my girlfriend to show that I'm on the phone with somebody, and turn around and keep walking. All I tell her is, "Hey, stay on the phone with me, will you?" and put the phone on speaker. She immediately gets that something is wrong and makes random conversation with me to make it seem as normal as possible. We do this for a bit, all the while I keep turning around quickly to the horrible sight of this tall, lanky, balding man holding a plastic baby doll, staring at me in the dark, in the middle of a fucking park, mind you, in the middle of the night with absolutely no one around. Finally, after like the 5th time of looking back, I see him turn around in that slow, methodical fashion and continue walking in the opposite direction. Never once did I see him look at his baby. I called the local police to tell them about it, but the woman on the phone gave me some mysterious attitude and told me they'd send someone to look around the area. Looking back, I realize I may have just been the world's biggest baby at the moment. After all, he didn't necessarily do anything to me, but I wish you could see his face. The sheer lack of expression, and just how sinister it really felt. When I was maybe 9 or 10, my father and I were driving through some rural back roads, and his car suddenly ran out of gas. He was aiming to get to a nearby gas station, an old middle-of-nowhere style mart that we would stop by and get snacks on these country drives. It was hot, and I was annoyed, ready to get back home and watch TV. He popped out of the truck and got his gas canister, and we planned to walk the mile down the road to fill up. After a couple of minutes, I started to complain. I'm sweating, I'm bored, etc. My father, being the guy he was, threw his thumb out and decided we would catch a ride. A couple of folks passed us. I don't blame them. My father was rocking the Charles Manson style back then, and who hitchhikes in 2007 anyways? Finally, a beat-up minivan pulled over. In it was a middle-aged couple with 3 kids. The woman asked my dad if everything was okay, and he explained the situation. And sweet as pie, she suggested, we can go and grab it for you, and your girl can ride along with us to get in that AC. The middle seat of the minivan had 2 open seats, and my dad thanked them and asked if we could both climb in. That's when the couple's energy changed. They insisted there was only enough space for a little girl like me to come on in. Come on, climb in, the woman said in the minivan. My intuition was saying no way, and my dad, though open to hitchhiking and getting us into other random trouble on the usual, seemed to have a similar wariness to him. He thanked them and offered that we wait in the truck in the AC while they do the run. Now the couple was talking just to me, a mix of sweet and commanding. It'll take a minute. We'll even get you a soda at the gas station. Come on, get in. My father said, my baby's sticking with me, and started to look down the highway for another ride. When he peered out at the road, the man in the minivan stepped out of the passenger seat and scooped me in. The woman shoved a picture book into my hands, cooing, "Look, we'll have fun." Not taking in the full situation, I remember feeling annoyed that I was being babied, but polite because in the South you're supposed to respect your elders. The man was about to slide the door closed, and the next part happened really fast. My dad pushed past him and yanked me out. Meanwhile, she shifted into drive as the man got back into his seat. They sped off, side door still open. Between the velocity of an angry protective dad and a lurching vehicle, I landed in the ditch. Unharmed but shaken up, I followed my dad back to the car in silence. He called a friend, and we waited till they showed up to work out the gas situation. Years later, I still wonder about this couple's intentions. It's very possible they saw a kind of rough around the edges man and a young girl and thought to help me out. But mind you, I'm his spitting image, so visually, obviously, I'm his child. Showing no signs of distress besides attitude, they had no good reason not to drive him along too, or to just do the gas run on their own and bring it back if they were so good-natured. I was taught stranger danger, but I never expected it to come from a couple with kids. I never saw them again. I still don't know what to make of it. Years ago, when I was 11, I was staying home alone with my only little brother who was 7 at the time. That night, it was around 9 p.m., dark and pouring rain, and we were reading in our room, which was right next to the front door with a big window and open blinds. That's when I hear the front door bell ring, followed by knocking. I thought my parents had arrived. Strange though that they didn't use the garage door or their keys. I looked outside to see their car. Nothing but rain. As I approach the door, I hear a man's voice that is not my father's yell through the torrent. "Would you like some cookies? We're selling Girl Scout cookies." I'm shocked at this, considering the weather and the time of day. Saying nothing, I check the peephole and peer through the side window, only to see that it was not a father with this girl as I expected. My heart dropped. Standing there was just a fully grown man, maybe in his late 50s, no box of cookies in sight, soaking on my doorstep. I can remember the gut-wrenching feeling of having to check the locks while he was right at the front door. For sure, he heard this. The 2 locks were the only thing separating myself and my brother from a potential monster. He continued to knock and mention his cookies. As I considered calling the cops, that's when I remembered the blinds were open in my room, where my brother was, with the lights on. As I turn the corner into the doorway, I see the man carefully peering into our window, possibly eyeing my brother, distracted by his book. My heart was pounding now. I began to panic. In a move that took all of my willpower, I quickly turned off the lights and ran over to the window to close the blinds, in full view of the man. As fast as I could, I double-checked all the locks in the house, closed all the blinds, and told my brother to go hang out in one of the big closets in the interior of the house, with no windows obviously. I didn't tell him what was going on so he wouldn't get frightened. I never did call the cops or my parents. I just waited in the hallway until he left. Still thinking about it gives me shivers that so many things could have gone wrong that night. My worst fear since is a stranger getting in through the unlocked door before I do.